Hey everyone. So my name is Jared Reno, and I'm going to be talking about one of the cultural contexts that I've chosen for Central, the church that I serve, is women in leadership. Now, this isn't necessarily because this is something that we at Central, the church I serve, struggle with, but it is a topic that has been brought up, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why I have taken interest in this topic and the joys I have, the struggles I have talking about it, and also some of the things that I've learned. So, first off, this church that I serve, I did not grow up in the denomination of which my church is a part of. Central is part of the Disciples of Christ denomination, and I grew up in an independent Christian or an independent church. And so the church that I grew up in, I did not I don't ever remember talking about why women weren't in leadership. I don't remember any messages of as to women can't lead, women can't preach, women can't do X, Y, or Z. I never heard that, but what I did see was primarily a male dominated ministry. And whether that was totally coincidental or what have you, that's just what I remember and what I witnessed. Thankfully, that has changed, but I do remember there not ever really being women leading the service. And again, that has changed, thankfully, and I don't remember women serving as Sunday school teachers other than in the children's ministry wing or participating in youth group. I don't remember them leading in those areas. And I do remember, any female leader at the church having the title director rather than pastor. And so those are some of the things that I remember from my growing up in an independent church. Now, um, thankfully, my parents did not um, did not really share any view on that. If that was a view held by the church, it was uh, very surprising to me growing up that anybody would ever think that women could not be pastors or take any office or take any role inside of a church. That just totally caught me off guard. That was one, a practice in some churches, and two, a belief held by individuals within different denominations. And so, thankfully, my parents did not force me to or did not raise me to believe that, nor did they teach me any of that. But what they did teach me was to have compassion for all um, and to see everybody as an equal. And so when I came to the Disciples Church when I was in high school, it was women. I saw women taking on leadership roles in different committees and as elders in diaconate. And so the church that I serve now at Central, they have that. And one of the reasons why I was interested in this group is one, because of how I was raised and in the church that I was raised now serving in a church that um, welcomes women into leadership positions. But two, I'm interested because there was a few weeks ago something happened in our church. Now Central, it has been having women in leadership for quite a while. They've had a woman pastor. They've had women as lead elders. We have two board chairs that are women. a board chair and a vice board chair. We have women that are holding different committee chairs. We have women serving communion as diaconate. If it were not for women, the women in our church specifically, we would not be effective, nor would we probably be around if it wasn't for the ladies within our congregation doing the wonderful work that they do. But as I said a couple of weeks ago, something interesting happened. So our head elder, who is female, she had us do a book study. And so we were going over the first chapter of the book. And it was quite interesting because the book that was written specifically for elders of congregations, it was not a book with the same style or with the same views that we had. And so in this first chapter, let me paint the picture for you. So we come into the room where we have our meeting, and we had kind of sectioned off different chapters. So, Joanne might have chapter one, and then Anna might have chapter two, and Susie might have chapter three. Uh, anyway, so we kind of sectioned off these, and those that were presenting the first chapter that day were just sitting there, and you could just feel the energy. They were ready to go because they wanted to tear into this first chapter. And in this first chapter, the author talks about the requirements of being an elder. Talks about how an elder should, one, have the desire to preach the good news and to share the good news. Wonderful thing. Do not disagree with that whatsoever. The elder should seek to be responsible, seek to serve and care for others. Again, both of those things, wonderful, wonderful, and yeah, absolutely a requirement. And so they have a couple of different things that the author lists, and kind of goes through that, and we kind of talked about it, and then at the end it said, and the requirement to be an elder is you must be male, which the lady giving the presentation was not well receiving of, nor were any of the other ladies within the congregation or within the eldership. But they all handled it with grace and humility, and they just all kind of laughed, and even the guys laughed too. Like, this is so absurd. This is absurd. But it was also a good thing because I got to hear these stories of how Central came to that point. I got to hear about their journey to that, where it wasn't much of a debate of, well, they should or they shouldn't. It wasn't a debate at all. But what came out of this discussion was a almost a reminiscing of their journey as a church to be who they were to be who they are today. And so some of them shared about when they grew up and they were remembering when Central had their first woman elder, or when the first woman board chair came around, or when they called their first woman pastor. And so there is that beauty in that story. But then there is also this story of unity that comes about, which I think is really behind all the things that brought them to this point. And I think I've shared this on a discussion board where, Barton Stone, we're a Barton Stone church. He came to Jacksonville, and there were two churches. They said, "Hey, we want you to be a part of our church and to lead us." And he said, "There's more that unites you than divides you. Come together, I'll be your church." And so they came together, even though they had differences of opinions, even though they had differences of worship styles. They came together, united in Christ. And I think that was the real spirit behind a lot of things that have happened at our church. That there's unity in Christ, and that gender or orientation or color or anything stand in the way of who we are in Christ, which I think is beautiful. in this conversation, I also talked to one of our ladies, and she had grown up in the church. She has served as an elder. She has been a board chair for a couple of times. And she remembers, she's in her late 60s now. She remembers when she was the first elder. She told me, she goes, Jared, I was the first woman, or not first woman elder, I was the first woman board chair. And I asked, was that difficult for you? And she goes, growing up in this church, even though I was one of the first female leaders in this role, um, I never thought I never thought I couldn't do something because I was a woman, and which I was so thankful to hear, because that means that even though there weren't women in some of these roles, there was never the idea that there couldn't be a woman in this role, and I think that's important. And so I was interested in this topic for those reasons. I think the challenging things about preaching about this topic is knowing that there may be a few people that don't agree with that, and I think in I've preached on this and I found joy in preaching on it because I get to share the story of how we have moved throughout this, and how we are united as brothers and sisters in Christ, how we are able to go and share the new good news together. Um, I think that's great, and I have a real joy in sharing that. But I think the challenging portion of it is, uh, knowing that there are a couple who may not hold on to that, and really trying to have those conversations with them one on one. You know, I don't know if I with what I preach, if that is going to make a difference in their mind, but being able to sit with them and if they talk about their hesitancy with this, um, I can at least say, let's be willing to go on this journey together, and let's explore this. Let's challenge this, and to walk with them in this. And um, I think that I find that to be the challenge, is finding those things. What surprises me about this group, about this cultural context, is just hearing the history, just hearing the stories from these ladies and gentlemen that I get to do ministry with, and hearing how they remember, or how they had experienced these moments. And I was really blessed to hear about the lady that was the first board chair, how she shared how there wasn't ever a time where she felt she couldn't do something. And again, I think it goes back to that idea of who we are as disciples, as a church, that there is this idea of unity behind everything that we do. And I think that's beautiful.